Marcus Chen had built an empire worth $3 billion, but tonight, slumped in his leather chair at 2 a.m., he felt like the poorest man alive. The divorce papers sat unsigned on his desk, his daughter hadn't returned his calls in 6 months, and the board wanted him out by Friday. He'd won every battle in the business world, yet somehow lost every war that mattered. As footsteps echoed down the hallway of his empty building, Marcus made a split-second decision that would change everything. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep, never imagining that the words whispered by a janitor would shatter the walls he'd spent a lifetime building. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the footsteps grew closer. Through his barely open eyelids, Marcus watched a man in his late 30s push a cleaning cart into the executive suite. The janitor wore a faded blue uniform, and moved with the careful quietness of someone who'd learned to make himself invisible. Marcus had seen this man before, always arriving after everyone left, always gone before anyone arrived. He'd never bothered to learn his name. Why would he? In Marcus's world, people were either useful or they weren't. This man pushed a mop. End of story. Except tonight, something made Marcus stay still. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was curiosity about how people behaved when they thought no one was watching. Or maybe, deep down, he wanted to feel invisible himself, just for a moment. The janitor, his name tag read, James, began cleaning with practiced efficiency. But then he paused, noticing Marcus slumped in the chair. James approached slowly, studying him with concerned eyes. "Sir," James said softly. "Mr. Chen." Marcus kept his breathing steady, his eyes closed. James stood there for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He walked to the coat closet, pulled out Marcus's cashmere overcoat, and gently draped it over him like a blanket. The gesture was so tender, so careful, that Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. But James wasn't finished. He adjusted the thermostat. Marcus heard the soft beep, making the room warmer. Then he dimmed the harsh overhead lights, leaving only the soft glow of the desk lamp. Marcus heard James return to his cart, but instead of the sound of cleaning, he heard the scrape of a chair being pulled up. Through his lashes, he saw James sit down, pull out a beaten-up smartphone, and make a call. "Hey, buddy," James said, his voice transformed by warmth. "I know it's late, but I wanted to hear your voice before you went to sleep." There was a pause, and then James laughed, a sound so pure and genuine that Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like that. "You did. You really scored 2 goals. That's amazing, Tommy. I'm so proud of you." Another pause. I know I wasn't there. But Mrs. Rodriguez sent me the video, and I watched it 3 times already. You were incredible." Marcus heard the ache beneath the joy, the pain of a father who'd missed his son's moment. "Listen, buddy, I need to tell you something," James continued, his voice growing serious. "I know things have been hard since Mom went to heaven. I know you see other kids with both parents, and it hurts. But you and me, we're a team, and I promise you, I'm working these late shifts so we can save up. Remember what we talked about? About you going to that soccer camp next summer. We're almost there." There was a longer pause, and when James spoke again, his voice was thick. "I love you too, buddy. More than all the stars in the sky. Now you get some sleep, okay? And Tommy, thank you for being so brave. You're the best thing I ever did right." After James hung up, he sat there for a moment, wiping his eyes. Then he stood, looked back at Marcus, and whispered something that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. "I hope you've got someone who loves you enough to cover you up when you fall asleep, sir. Because all the money in the world doesn't mean a thing if you're cold and alone." Then James did something that made Marcus's heart stop. He walked to Marcus's desk, saw the divorce papers, and without reading them, respecting privacy even when no one was watching, he simply moved them aside and placed a post-it note on top. Marcus heard the scratch of a pen. James finished cleaning in silence, his movements even more careful than before, as if protecting Marcus's rest. When he finally left, Marcus sat up, his heart pounding. He reached for the post-it note with trembling hands. In simple, neat handwriting, it read, "Whatever you're going through, it will pass. Take care of yourself. The world needs good people like you leading it, James." Marcus stared at those words until they blurred. This man, this janitor who worked through the night to give his son a better life, who'd just spent his only break calling to encourage a child he'd disappointed, who had every reason to be bitter, thought Marcus was a good person. Believed the world needed him. When was the last time anyone had seen him that way? When was the last time he'd seen himself that way? Marcus grabbed his phone and pulled up the employee database. James Morrison, single father, had been working the night shift for 3 years. Perfect attendance. No complaints. No raises. 3 years of invisible dedication. 3 years of Marcus walking past him without seeing him. Marcus spent the next hour digging deeper. He found James's employment application, his son's school records in the emergency contact file, even a note from 2 years ago where James had turned down a day shift position because he needed to be home when Tommy got off the school bus. By dawn, Marcus had made several calls. When James arrived for his shift the next night, he found a note on his card: "Please come to the executive floor. M. Chen." James's hands shook as he rode the elevator. Had someone seen him use the phone? Was he going to lose his job? The elevator doors opened. Marcus stood there, and for the first time, James saw him truly awake, truly present. "Mr. Morrison," Marcus said. "James, I owe you an apology." "Sir, if this is about the phone call." "It's about 3 years of me being blind," Marcus interrupted. "Please, sit." Over the next hour, Marcus told James everything. About pretending to sleep. About the whisper that had cracked him open. About the note that had reminded him what actually mattered. "You showed me more about leadership in 5 minutes than I learned in 20 years of business school," Marcus said. "And I want to do something about it." He slid a folder across the desk. "This is a proposal for our new community impact program. But I need someone to run it, someone who understands what it means to struggle, to sacrifice, to keep showing up when no one's watching. Someone who knows how to lead with kindness." James opened the folder. Director of Community Relations. Full benefits. A salary that made his eyes water. Day shift. "I can't," James started. "You'll be home for every soccer game," Marcus said quietly. "And Tommy's soccer camp. Already paid for. Consider it a signing bonus." James's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" "Because you covered me with my coat when you thought I was sleeping. Because you turned up the heat and dimmed the lights. Because you believed I was good when I'd forgotten how to believe it myself." Marcus's voice broke. "Because you reminded me that being seen, truly seen, is the greatest gift anyone can give." 3 months later, Marcus stood at the sideline of a soccer field, watching Tommy score the winning goal. James stood beside him, wearing a shirt that read, "Proud Soccer Dad," his face alight with joy. "Thank you," James said quietly. "For seeing me." "No," Marcus replied, his arm around James's shoulder. "Thank you for seeing me first." That night, Marcus finally signed the divorce papers, not with bitterness but with acceptance. He called his daughter, and for the first time in months, she answered. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he had something more important. He'd learned that sometimes the greatest success comes from being awake enough to see the humanity in a whisper, brave enough to admit you've been asleep, and wise enough to know that the people we overlook often have the most to teach us. And every night, before he left the office, Marcus made sure the heat was turned up and the lights were dimmed, just in case someone needed covering up. Because he'd learned that kindness isn't about grand gestures, it's about seeing people in the dark and choosing to be their light.